back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzi, and we have a great show for you today. First topic we'll be going over is the Braves' offensive struggles this year, then going over some Reds injuries, Orioles trade rumors, Kevin Biggio being traded to the Dodgers, and the Nationals and Rays facing decisions at the deadline. But before all that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read on the air, please use the link at gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into the show for today. All right, so as I talked about, we are going to be starting off with the Atlanta Braves and their struggling offense and just talking about it. So let's get into it. Now, before we do that, I would like to say I do apologize for the extended introduction today. I forgot to update the title, and I realized that as soon as I went on live, so I had no choice but to go for like an extra minute on there. I apologize, but let's get into the show for today. All right, so you can see the graphic on the screen here showing just how much the Braves offense has struggled. I do want to say that I did not make this graphic. It comes from over on Twitter from Brooksgate, a fantastic MLB account. Go follow it if you haven't. They have great MLB statistics and graphics. But I wanted to give a visual representation here of how bad the Braves offense has been. So looking at this now, they have a .224 batting average since May 1st, 28th in MLB. Their OPS is 27th, weighted runs created plus 27th, home runs 17th, stolen bases near last, runs near last, and hard hit percentage, though, is first. So that is important. So what I want to talk about here is just why this Braves team may be struggling and just, what is going on with them. So right now, the team is 9-16 since May 25th. They have scored 3 or fewer runs in 16 of their 25 last games. And the graphic on the screen speaks for itself. They've been really, really bad. So the thing that I want to point out mostly here is just looking at the statistics for the Braves team. This is since May 1st. And before that, you could have just said, okay, you know what? This is just Acuna, them getting, into, them dealing with life without Acuna. It's not really a big deal. Well, Acuna's been hurt, but Acuna was hurt well after this. He got hurt at the end of May, and this is since May 1st. So it's showing that the offensive problems for the Braves have started a little while ago and are consistently happening right now. So if I'm a Braves fan, I wouldn't necessarily be, very worried, but I'd at least have some caution at this point. I think there is some stuff to worry about, and there are some stuff to think about right now if you are a Braves fan. So I think the Acuna injury has really impacted them a lot at this point. I mean, losing your best position player is, of course, always going to hurt. There's really no doubt about that. But it's really given them no one to lean on. Right now, your best player is Marcell Ozuna, and nobody expected that. I mean, with all the elite hitters you have in your lineup, you have Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Michael Harris. Like, those are all great, great players. Your offense is being carried by Marcell Ozuna, a guy who we thought was going to get cut last year. And he's having a great season, don't get me wrong, but I think that's a problem when he's the guy getting most of the shine for this team and is the guy that is consistently having the best hitting statistics and is the guy that really is carrying your offense. It really is not a positive right now, and it's something that you should look at. And I think that right now it is showing that the Braves have a real offensive problem at this point and are genuinely struggling. I think there are a lot of things wrong with this team right now, and a lot of their regular players are not performing to their abilities. I mean, you look at, first of all, Acuna, even before getting hurt, only had a 109 weighted runs created plus. That's not good. Orlando Arcia, 77. He's been bad, and that's your starting shortstop every single day. Michael Harris, 85. Not that good. Matt Olson, 112. Now, is that good? Yes, but that's not what you expect for a guy who's like Matt Olson, a guy who has the pedigree as Matt Olson does. So that's not something you want to see, and that's definitely an underperformance here. Also, you have Austin Riley, who has also been really, really bad. I mean, 83 at this point. That's really, really struggling. Ozzie Albies has barely been above league average. Like, Sean Murphy's been horrible, and he's been out for a little while, but still, he's been bad when he's been on the field. So there are a lot of consistent bad things going on with this Braves offense right now, and I don't know if it's going to entirely be can just be fixed out of the blue. And with Acuna going down and being out for what is most likely the rest of the year, you're going to have more of these things. I mean, you're now going to be having Jared Kelenic and Adam Duvall starting every single day, and that's a problem. No offense to Jared Kelenic and Adam Duvall. I just don't think these are guys that you want a team to start every single day. I just don't think that's entirely what you really want to do. So that's a big negative there. And also, also with this team, again, these guys like Olsen, like Harris, Arcia, guys who are everyday starters that you really have no exact, replacements for, are very much struggling and might be guys you have to look to replace. And I just don't know if you have the ability to do that. So this offense has a lot of trouble right now and is really not doing well. Now, you could argue they're getting unlucky. I mean, right now, you see it on the screen that their hard hit percentage is first in all of MLB since May 1st, but it's just not translating. Now, I think that overall this team really is struggling, and maybe they are getting unlucky, yes, but at the same time, still a lot of their players are not doing that well. And I think that there is a consistent problem with this team, and it is highlighted now with Acuna being out. So if I'm a Braves fan, I'm worried because this offense really is not performing well whatsoever. And with Acuna out, one of your stars out, you're really going to start to really struggle. And you look at this NL East right now, and it's really tough. I mean, you got the Phillies, who are arguably the best team in baseball right now, who have really, really been bad. And have really, really been good. I don't know why I said bad. Have been very, very good. And this Nationals team is sneaking up there, and the Braves are 8 games out at this point. And I just don't know what the rest of the season is going to look like. You also, of course, have problems with your pitching staff. Spencer Strider is out for the rest of the year. Chris Sale and Reynaldo Lopez are surely going to regress at some point in the second half. You really are only left with Max Fried, who is a great pitcher and I have no complaints about, and Hurston Waldrop, who is a good pitcher, but is also a rookie and was drafted literally last year. So that's another problem with your pitching. So there are a lot of problems with this Braves team, a lot of stuff that, if you look beyond the surface, are consistently big deals and are stuff that you really have to watch out for. And again, I think that this might just simply not be their year with the injuries they've had. When you had these two guys, arguably your two best players in Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr., go down for the rest of the year, you have to have people step up. And just frankly, the team has not done that. I think the hitting core really has not done a great job stepping up and filling in for Acuna's value, and they definitely need to be able to improve in some places, and they just have not been able to do that. So it's going to be tough for them. Again, I don't think they're winning this NL East at this point. I also think that the NL playoff picture as well is really not been great. It's really not looking great for them. There's a lot of good teams in this league, and I think they'll still make the playoffs, but are you better than the Dodgers? Are you better than the Phillies? Honestly, are you better than the Brewers? If the Cubs get healthy and better, are you going to be better than them? I'm not sure. So I think the Braves are kind of like the Astros, where we look at them as an invincible team that is always going to do well no matter what, but it's not looking like that this year. I think there are just a lot of problems with this team that we haven't seen in a little while, and yeah, I'd definitely be a little worried, and would definitely be cautious if I was a Braves fan right now. I do think the offense is in a really bad state. You don't have the prospect capital to be able to acquire someone rather quickly, and you might have to just deal with this for the rest of the season. Sure, you'll make the playoffs, but are you even going to go that far? And with 3 years and that's going to be 3 straight years then of being out in the first round, you're going to have to make massive changes to the backbone, I think. I mean, it'll be 3 years since you've won your World Series. You got to start doing some things to help improve. So Braves are going to be a fascinating team to watch for the rest of the year. I'm very, very excited to see what does happen with them. Very interested. And yeah, just want to talk about it. Marcell Ozuna, though, having an amazing season, really carrying this Braves team on his back. So props to him. But yeah, everyone else really, really struggling and not doing that well. So that was our first segment here, talking about the Atlanta Braves and their struggling offense. We'll be moving into our second segment, which is going to be talking about the Cincinnati Reds and some injury news going on with them. We did learn of 2 players potentially being out for the rest of the season with them. So yeah, we'll be talking about that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We're going to go into our second segment here, but before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show for today. All right, so as I talked about, we're going into our second segment here, which is going to be talking about really just an overall evaluation of the Cincinnati Reds and just talking about their season this year. So let's get into it. So overall, the Reds this year have been a massive, massive disappointment. If you remember from preseason, I don't know if any of you watched, but or any of you remember, but I had the Reds winning the NL Central. I also said that I thought they were clearly the best team in this NL Central, and I was very, very high on them. Well, to be frank, they have let me down, and it's been a lot. They currently are fourth in the NL Central and are 3 games under 500. Now, to be fair, they're a game and a half. They're a half game out of second place because the NL Central is so together with the 2 and 5 spots. But they would still then be 6 games out of first place. So they really have been a big disappointment for me this year, and just for any baseball fan who expected them to be good. And yeah, it's just been very unfortunate watching them and seeing what has happened. And it was added on to today when it was announced that Christian Encarnacion Strand and Brandon Williamson are potentially out for the rest of the year and are considering season-ending surgeries. So Christian Encarnacion Strand has ligament damage with his fractured hand that was fractured from a hit by pitch before in the season, and Brandon Williamson has a lesion in his shoulder. So first with Encarnacion Strand did enter the season as the Reds starting first baseman. He was one of the big reasons why I thought this Reds team would end up doing very, very well this year. I was very high on him. I was very high in this entire young core, and Encarnacion Strand, of course, is a part of that. I love what he did at the end part of last year, coming up and doing really, really well. I thought he would parlay that into this entire season, this full season, being a really, really good hitter and really helping out this Reds offense, and he has done the opposite of that. He has been really, really bad when he has been on the field with a 38 weighted runs created plus, and also his triple slash has also been pretty bad, and he hasn't been on the field a lot anyways, fracturing his hand again earlier into the season. So he has been a big disappointment for the Reds. You could just say, oh, it's not his fault, he got injured. Well, he was doing pretty bad before the injury, so I'm not really going to use that excuse here for Encarnacion Strand and do that with him. So other than that, we have Brandon Williamson, who has a lesion in his shoulder, which is just a shoulder injury in general. And any injury with a pitcher nowadays, especially this season, you have to take fully into consideration all options. You have to take with the highest level of sensitivity and, make sure you treat it very, very well. And both these players are considering season-ending surgeries. For Williamson, he has not been up to the big leagues yet. Has only pitched in AAA this year, where he has been pretty fantastic, only going 10 innings though. But overall, he was going to be I think he was going to be a bigger part of the team in the second half, bringing a lot of pitching depth to this team, whether that's out of the bullpen as a lefty arm or as a depth starter. But overall, I don't think this is a huge blow, but at the same time, it just adds on to what has happened with this Reds team this year. I mean, of course, you had before the season 2 big blows, as Matt McLain had a season-ending injury right before the season started, which was a huge blow. McLain is a player I'm so high on. I think that he is going to be a superstar in this league, and he was one of the big reasons why, again, I had the Reds as a as a contender in the NL and the NL Central winner. After that, we also had Novelli Marte, who was slotted in to be the starting third baseman, get suspended for steroids and was going to be suspended for 80 games. He is actually doing rehab assignments right now to get prepared to be back from the sentence, but still it might be a little too late at this point. Jeimer Candelario was also signed in the offseason, which was a perplexing signing at the time because they had so much infield depth, but ended up being a great signing because of the injuries to the infield. And yeah, players I thought would be big contributors to this Reds team have just gotten injured or have underperformed, and has really been the big part why they have not done as well as I expected them to this year. Frankie Montas, who was a pitcher I loved the Reds signing, that was a great move. Also got injured this year and has been on and off the injured list, only making 12 starts for them. Also had Nick Lodolo being on and off, so I think that overall it's just been very disappointing to watch this Reds team, and to put it pretty bluntly, it's just not their year, I think. I think that overall everything has not gone their way, and I just don't think that this is the year for the Reds to finally break out. I saw the young core last year. I saw how well everyone was doing. I saw the promise of what this team could be, and they just have not lived up to it. Whether that's injuries, underperformance, whatever, it just has been very disappointing. And also Elly De La Cruz. Elly De La Cruz was a guy I thought was going to be an impact player from the moment he stepped in the MLB, and was, but after those little honeymoon period of him being up in the MLB, he has not done as fantastic as you would expect for a player of his talent level. I talked about it yesterday when he appeared on the most overrated players in the MLB list, and I talked about how, unfortunately, I agreed. I thought that he was one of the most overrated players in the MLB right now. I also thought he was a good player who also is fantastic. It's a fantastic ambassador for the league, with how exciting he is, how well he plays, and just how much fun he plays with. So I just figured let him be. But just looking at it baseball-wise, looking at it stats-wise, he is a little overrated at this point. I think people look at him as some generational shortstop because of the physical tools he has, because of how exciting he is, and that's just not what he's done so far. So I think that overall, he's been very disappointing for them this year. Hasn't been bad, but definitely hasn't lived up to the standards that you would expect. And just overall, this Reds team has been very disappointing as a fan of baseball and as a fan of good young teams who I want to see be good. So yeah, I think the Reds' outlook for this year is pretty bleak, but overall, in the future, I do still like that I still do like this team in the future. I still think there is a lot to like about them. I still think there's a lot of good young players. And I think that in the future, mainly next year, I think they're going to be good. I think they have to make the right moves in free agency, sign some starting pitchers, maybe get some more relief arms. Their bullpen's pretty strong, but maybe add to it a little bit. And it's just how baseball works. I just think that overall, all the circumstances added up into this year just not being for them, and just was unfortunate. Looking at the NL Central as well, I mean, it's definitely a tough road ahead. You have the Brewers, who have just taken so much control of that division and are going to be hard to take down. You have also the Cubs, who I think are a really great team, just haven't put it all together yet. Shota Imanaga, once he gets back to his normal self, I think will really lead this team and be very well. The rotation is great. Pirates, of course, are on the rise now with Paul Skeens coming up and doing so well. Cardinals are doing better as of recently. And I think that overall, it's going to be very interesting to end up watching the NL Central, see where the Reds end up. And I just think that all these circumstances have led up to a bad season for the Reds. It's been very disappointing, very unfortunate, and just kind of how baseball, sports, and life works. Sometimes things don't go your way, and it's been unfortunate for them, but we'll have to see what does happen with them in the future. I'm still high on them for next year, but I just think with all the circumstances that have happened this year, it's just not their year. So that was the end of segment 2 here, talking about the Reds and some injuries that have happened for them and just an overall outlook. We'll be moving into our third segment, which is going to be talking about the Orioles and some trade rumors involving them. We'll explain why the man up there is the man in the graphic is there in the segment as well. So stick around for that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, Sam. Bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, which is going to be talking about the Orioles and some trade rumors involving them recently. So yeah, let's get into it. So Ken Rosenthal came out today with one of his MLB notebook pieces, which he does around maybe every 2 weeks or so. A lot of informative information in there. Like always, I suggest you guys read it if you are baseball fans. And he talked a lot about the Orioles today and what they're looking at the deadline. So with the Orioles, of course, they are going to be competitors and they are going to be adding at the deadline. I mean, that is incredibly obvious for anyone who knows any little thing about baseball. They are probably the second best team in baseball right now and clearly are going to add. And he offered a lot of valuable information about the team and what their plans are at the deadline, and I did want to talk about it. So first off, he talked about how they are looking to get a right-handed outfielder and are also looking to upgrade their bullpen. And I think that both of these are very, very fair things to talk about and are pretty good fits for this team, for this Orioles team. I think that overall the Orioles are an amazing team and have a lot of talent, but I think that at the same time there are some things that need to be worked on. So starting off with the outfield, I mean, this lineup is absolutely just impeccable. You have Adley Rutschman, Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle. You have, of course, Gunnar Henderson. Jackson Holliday is going to come up eventually. Colton Cowser's been great. And kind of the one little question mark, the one little void on your team is Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins was a guy who came out of nowhere a few years ago, finished top 10 in MVP, and was a really, really fantastic player for the Orioles and looked to be one of the early building blocks for this bad Orioles team. Was a fan favorite immediately, was great, and was looking to be a franchise star, but really has cooled off these past few seasons and has not done as well. And whether that's for him just regressing back to the mean as we expected, pitchers figuring him out, whatever else, we don't know. But he has been pretty bad and is looking to be one of the only voids on a very powerful and great Orioles team. And I think looking at it, center field is one of the biggest faults that this Orioles team does have. And that's also why I think that a right-handed outfielder is what they are looking for. And honestly, if I had to say, I think Luis Robert is a perfect fit for this Orioles team. Robert is a young superstar player with a lot of control left on his deal. The White Sox are right now apparently looking to trade him. I don't really agree with that, but I get it. At least they're bad, and he's a great player. They'll get a lot back for him, and I think the Orioles make a lot of sense for him. He's a right-handed outfielder. He's young. He's great. He's under control for cheap for the next few years. And he also would add a terrifying balance to this lineup. I mean, you would then have Rutschman, Henderson, Holliday when he comes up. You're going to have Cowser, Robert. That's an insane core to have. And I think he would be an absolutely amazing fit. And I also think the Orioles are one of the few teams to be able to genuinely have a farm system that can be able to put together a package for this superstar Robert. You're, of course, not going to be trading Jackson Holliday for him, but looking at a guy like Samuel Basala, who is a younger catcher, a top 10 prospect in baseball, according to a lot of publications, at least top 20 for most of the time, is blocked by Adley Rutschman, I think will make a lot of sense to be traded for Luis Robert. And if not him, you want to say maybe Colby Mayo. You want to say maybe a Heston Kjerstad as guys who are going to potentially be big pieces of a trade. Enrique Bradfield Jr., Connor Norby, Dylan Beavers, Cade Povich, Judd Fabian. The list of Orioles prospects that are really good just goes on and on and on, and I think that's the big reason why the Orioles are such a fantastic fit for Luis Robert and makes so much sense here. He's a young star player that not any team can trade for, and the Orioles make a lot of sense for him, again, just with baseball-wise. So if I'm the Orioles, I'm looking at this. I think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get a player like this, and it makes a lot of sense for both sides. The White Sox get the prospects they want. The Orioles get a superstar center fielder to add to their already amazing list of core. And also, you may look at this and say, okay, well, Sam, why, if they have so many great young hitters already, why would they want to just trade for another? I think one of the things honestly missing with this Orioles team is a true center fielder. You have a lot of good outfield prospects, a lot of good hitting prospects, but really other than Enrico Bradfield Jr., who probably won't be up for 3 to 4 years, you don't really have a true center fielder in this system. Heston Kjerstad, corner outfielder. Connor Norby, corner outfielder. Kobe Mayo, infielder. Basallo, catcher, first baseman. You don't really have a true center fielder in this organization as a prospect right now, and I think adding a superstar like Robert would really help you solidify that and just make this team all the more scary. This is the time to do it. If you're going to win, it's going to be this year. This might be your only year with superstar Corbin Burns, and I think that overall, this is the year to do it. This is the year to go all in, and this is the year to try to win it all. I think that other than really the Yankees, you don't have much competition in the American League, and I would go all in if I'm them. And even if you don't win this year, and it fails, you still have Robert for 2 to 3 more years. So I think this is a fantastic fit. And I also think the White Sox have some other things the Orioles are looking for. They said they're looking for a right-handed bullpen arm. Well, the Orioles have Garrett Crochet, don't they? Michael Kopech, who's a great right-handed bullpen arm that possesses a lot of good stuff and can help this bullpen out. That's another great fit for there. So I think the White Sox and Orioles are 2 very good fits, and I think the Orioles need to start looking at an upgrade for center field and do need to look at some bullpen options as well. Now, if you don't want to go all in with this big-time option of Luis Robert, which I would disagree with, but I think the Mets offer a fascinating trade as well. You could trade for one of their veteran relievers like an Adam Ottavino, a Reed Garrett, a Sean Reed Foley, a Drew Smith, and also get expiring center fielder Harrison Bader to add to the team, who is a very solid player. Of course, isn't to the caliber of a Robert, but would allow Cedric Mullins to only verse righties. Would also allow Bader to only play lefties, and which is his strong suit. Would add amazing late game defense to your outfield. Bader being one of the best. Would add a late game pinch runner as well, and just adds a lot of good things to this Orioles team. And I think would be a nice fit there. So I could also see that happening. I think Bader and a reliever from the Mets is also a possibility if you want to do that. You could look in division and trade for Kenley Jansen of the Red Sox and add him to your veteran closer room with Craig Kimbrell That would also be a possibility. Not sure the Red Sox will want to do that though. So I think there are a good amount of options here for this Orioles team, and I think that honestly, center field and a right-handed reliever, just any reliever, honestly, doesn't matter what arm side they are. I'm sure they prefer right-handed, but still, I think a right-handed reliever or reliever of any kind and a center fielder are the 2 things the Orioles need to be looking at, because this team is absolutely fantastic. There's no doubt about that, but there are still holes on this team like any other team has. So I think that this is what you have to look for the Orioles. They're going to be an extremely fascinating team to look at for the trade deadline and the rest of the year with how much young talent they have, and I'm so excited to see what happens. With Robert as well, John Heyman mentioned today on his live stream that there are 6 teams, at least 6 teams, that are Luis Robert genuine suitors. The Dodgers, Phillies, Braves, Royals, Mariners, and Blue Jays. You also, I would say, add in the Orioles to that list. That's 7 teams that genuinely could make a move for Robert. So Robert's going to be another fascinating player to watch this deadline as well. I'm very excited to see what happens with that. I think he would add so much to this deadline if he does end up getting traded. So, yeah, overall, very excited to watch this Orioles trade deadline. Very excited to see the trade deadline as well. So excited to talk to you guys about it on July 31st. That's going to be my favorite show by far. I love the trade deadline, and it's going to be very, very exciting. And, yeah, so excited to see that. And I love talking about the trade deadline, and hopefully we get to talk about it more as we go to the deadline in a little more than a month here. So, yeah. That is our 3rd segment here, talking about the Orioles and some trade rumors involving them. We'll be moving into our 4th segment, which is going to be talking about Kevin Biggio and his trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers and what it means for both teams. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that, and we'll see you after the break. So, thanks, and bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about Cavan Biggio and his trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers. So let's get into it. So Biggio was DFA'd by the Blue Jays around a week ago, I'd say, and it was obvious that he was going to end up finding a new home. Of course, being DFA'd is not a player that would go to the minor leagues, I'd say. So he ended up today being traded to the Dodgers. And it's a very fascinating move, I think, for both sides. So, first of all, I want to look at the fit on the Dodgers, and I think the fit on the Dodgers here for Biggio is pretty clear. The Dodgers need some bench help right now, and I think Biggio helps that. He brings a left-handed presence to the team, and overall just brings some nice depth. And more importantly, I think really what this is he is a substitution for Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor is, of course, the Dodgers' model super utility guy, a guy who can play basically every single position on the field, I'd say, except for catcher and pitcher, and could probably is their emergency catcher and probably can pitch a little if you ask him to. But this is a guy who genuinely can play second, short, third, left, center, right, first in a high quality way. And he's a very valuable player for the Dodgers, and that's why they gave him a big contract a few years ago. But this year, to put it nicely, he has been bad, and he's been really bad. So this year, he has a -1 weighted runs created plus. -1, yes, that is correct. And it's also not like he hasn't played this year. He's had 90 at-bats and has 9 hits. So he's been bad. To just put it simply, Chris Taylor's been really bad, and I think with the similar skill set of him and Biggio, it makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers to end up making this move. In that, if Chris Taylor keeps struggling, he only has a year and a half left on that contract. You might have to either trade him or just honestly release him. The Dodgers, you can handle that money. I think Biggio makes a lot of sense in this role. He is a super utility guy. He's younger than Taylor, and provide some more potential there. Now, do I think Cavan Biggio is ever going to be what we expected him to be out of the minor leagues? No. He was a top prospect in the minor leagues, and a lot of people expected him to be a very solid MLB player. I think that time has passed for him. I think at this point he is looking a little bit like a bust, which is unfortunate, but I don't think he's ever going to be a quality type MLBer. But at the same time, he brings the skill set to this Dodgers team, and he still has potential. And if there's any team that knows how to get potential out of former top prospects, it is the Dodgers. I mean, just looking at these past 2 years, of course, the most prevalent example is going to be Max Muncy, who they turned from a scrub on the A's to their starting second and third baseman over the past few years. But you've also had pitching people as well, like an Andrew Heaney, who you developed very well. Tyler Anderson, both players who had struggled the past few years and came to the Dodgers and were fixed. Looking even further, you have a Justin Turner, who was a scrub with the Mets and the Orioles and got picked up by the Dodgers, and they developed into one of the best players of the Dodgers 2010 teams. So overall, if there's any team that can get the potential out of Biggio, it is the Dodgers. I'm sure they see something in him that they think they could potentially get something out of him, and this is a very good place for him. I think there is still, of course, a lot of talent left for Biggio, even if he's probably not going to be the player we all thought he was going to be when he came up. Again, when you're a former top prospect, there is still something that teams like about you, and there is something that always stays with you as being a really good player. So I think that overall, it's a very fascinating move by this Dodgers team to end up trading for Biggio, and is something that is very, very exciting, and overall I think is a very interesting move, and something I'm very much looking forward to watching with the Dodgers. I think that Biggio brings a lot of potential to this Dodgers team and is a really good fit. So very excited to watch it here and very excited to see how it does play out, see if Biggio can end up being a quality player for this team. And yeah, I just think overall is a good fit. It makes a lot of sense right now with Chris Taylor really, really struggling. Now, looking at this from the Blue Jays perspective, I kind of think that this might be the end of an era in Toronto, the end of the baby boomers era. I'm not with them. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but it's something with baby, because if you know, the three of the top prospects coming up for the Jays a few years ago were Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Cavan Biggio. Cavan Biggio, of course, is the son of former superstar second baseman for the Astros, Craig Biggio. Bo Bichette is the son of former star shortstop Dante Bichette, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, of course, the son of MLB legend Vladimir Guerrero Sr. And having all three of these guys come up at the same time for Toronto was a very exciting thing and a very exciting movement for them. And I don't know, it just kind of hasn't lived up to what we thought it would be. They've had some good teams, they've made some nice playoff runs, but overall it just hasn't lived up to the potential that we all thought it once had. I think that overall it just kind of was a disappointment, and we might be looking at the end here. You've already had Cavan Biggio be DFA'd and move on to the Dodgers. Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are both heavily interested in trade rumors throughout this entire year, and Bichette as well has not been performing that well. So it looks like it may be the end of an era in Toronto, and it kind of looks like they're going a different way with this organization. There's been a lot of underperformance. A lot of players not playing up to their potential these past few years, and I think we're kind of seeing the end of that now. We're kind of seeing that these players are, kind of finally getting the punishment for that, quote unquote. And it's going to be very interesting to see what does happen with this Blue Jays team in the future, and also with this year and just what the outlook is for them. I think it's going to be very, very interesting and very exciting to watch, see what happens with this deadline. I had a whole segment on Monday about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the trade rumors involving him, and I talk more about the Blue Jays there. If you want to look at that, it's on the channel. But yeah, I think the Blue Jays are a fascinating team to watch for this year, and a team that I really think are going to have to make some tough decisions at the trade deadline. And I'd not be excited if I was in the chair of their general manager seat right now. And I think fans are a little fed up with how underwhelming the team has been for the past few years. I think it might be time to either do a hard reset or just a full-out rebuild and kind of just trade everyone with value, whether that's even going as far as Kevin Gausman, trading Vladdy, trading Bichette, trading Jordan Romano, some of these other guys that are stars, trading George Springer. I don't know if he has much value at this point, but you could try. So it's going to be very, very interesting to end up watching this, and very excited to see what the Blue Jays do end up deciding for themselves. But again, looking at them this year, I just don't see a path for them doing anything well. The Rays are above them and have done better as of recently. The Yankees and Orioles are, of course, elite. The Red Sox have surprised people and done very well. So it's just going to be a very interesting decision here to see what the Blue Jays do and just very interesting to see what does happen with their entire season. The Dodgers, of course, are amazing and are one of the best teams in the MLB and probably the second best team in the NL right now. So not really more worried about them, but I like this Biggio move for them. I think it was a good, solid depth move to be able to replace the production that Chris Taylor is not giving you right now and be able to replace him. Brings a lot of versatility, and if any team can get talent out of a young player who has not lived up to it, it's the Dodgers. So very interested to see how Biggio's tenure does go here in the city of Angels, and yeah, just overall very interested, intrigued, and excited. So that was the end of our fourth segment here, talking about Cavan Biggio and his trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll be moving into our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about the Tampa Bay Rays and the Washington Nationals. Both teams are in a very interesting place toward the trade deadline and face decisions with it. I wanted to combine them together and talk about them both. So yeah, we'll be going over that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks and bye. And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about the Nationals and Rays and the decisions they face ahead of the trade deadline. So let's get into it. All right, so with the Nationals and the Rays, both these teams are in very interesting spots heading into the trade deadline, and I do want to talk about it. So, as I talked about before, Ken Rosenthal did drop an article today, meant just adding a lot of stuff in his notebook and just talking about a lot of different things involving the deadline and involving certain teams. And the Nationals and Rays were together and were involved in this, so I did want to talk about it, and I thought he brought up a lot of interesting points. So, I want to first start off with the Tampa Bay Rays and just talk about them. So, he said in his article, rival executives are already circling the Tampa Bay Rays, thinking they can buy low on struggling hitters such as Randy Arozarena, Yandy Diaz, and Brandon Lau. All of them are expensive and have only combined for 0.5 WAR ahead of this year so far with them. And with the Rays underperforming this year, I do think this makes a lot of sense. I think that all three of these players could potentially see their way out of Tampa, but also I'm not sure. I think that overall it's going to be very interesting to see, and I did want to talk about it. So with the Rays, we know this about them. They don't spend money. And if these three players who are being paid a significant amount of money are all underperforming their contracts pretty significantly, I think it may encourage them to move on from them, because simply put, they are pretty cheap and they are a smaller market team who just cannot afford a lot of money. And I think Arozarena mainly is the big guy here. I think that he would be the crown jewel of a team's trade down if they were able to get him. Yes, he's struggling this year, but at the same time, he's Randy Arozarena. I mean, he has enough name power to be able to have a team strongly look into him. His track record speaks for itself, how good he's been, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs. I mean, this is a guy who's very close to winning a World Series MVP and has a proven track record of that. And if you're a young team looking to add an outfielder, I think Arozarena would make a lot of sense. Now, there are a lot of teams I think overall make a lot of sense for him. I think the Royals come to mind as one. The Orioles, again, that might be hard because division team, but also the Phillies, Dodgers, Mariners, I think also make a lot of sense. And I think Arozarena is a great player and could potentially have a lot of interest for him at the trade deadline. But I'm just not sure if the Rays would want to do that. Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau. I think Diaz would be more likely to go because he is older. I think a lot of teams make sense, including the Yankees. Again, that would be hard because it's in division, but I think they make sense. And then that, just any team needing a veteran DH or first base bat, which are a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to watch these Rays players ahead of the deadline. Zach Eflin is also a player I think makes a lot of sense to be able to trade if you are Tampa. A really good starting pitcher, only has a year and a half left on his deal, and has been amazing with them. The first year hasn't been as great this year, but I think teams still see the potential and stuff in him. We already know the Braves have registered interest in him, so that could potentially be a fit there. But yeah, overall, going to be very interesting to end up watching what does happen with this Rays team and the players, the decisions they do make on these players. Now, the one question I did want to ask here is, should the Rays buy or sell, in my opinion? If I'm the Rays this year, I'm selling. And I'm selling hard, to be perfectly honest with you. There's a lot of injuries with this team that are going to help them next year, but also I don't know how much they are going to affect the entirety of this team. Shane McClanahan is the big one. Of course, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's healthy and should be back for the entirety of next year and is going to, of course, be a big help. Jeffrey Springs as well, another starting pitcher for them, so that helps. But overall, I just think this year is not their year, and I think Zach Eflin could be a player that finds his way out and a player I would trade. I would not trade Arozarena, as I think you're just selling too low on his value. Same with Lau, but I would look to maybe potentially trade Yandy Diaz, even with his regression. I mean, he's getting older, so it might just be more of regression than unluckiness for him. So I think that's all something you have to ponder. But the Rays still have a lot of good people in this farm system. There's a lot of good young talent on this team. I just don't think this is their year, and I'd be looking to trade anyone on a 1-year contract or a 1 or 2 year contract. And I think that's the correct course of action for this Rays team right now. There's just a lot not going right for them, and a lot of things that I think our system are just fundamentally wrong with this team this year because of injuries, because of underperformance, whatever it is. And yeah, that's definitely what I'd be looking at here, and very interested to see where they do go with this deadline, and very excited to watch. Again, now with the Nationals. The Nationals are in a very, very interesting situation because who would have thought we'd be talking about them as potentially selling, as potentially buying, I mean. This is a team that has not done well these past few years. We thought was also not going to do well this year, and still haven't done that great, but haven't been that horrible. And with the Braves struggling a little bit and potentially not looking like their year, I think that the Nationals could potentially look to buy. Rosenthal talks about it in the article as the Nationals are currently pondering what to do. They're only one game out of a wild card berth. Their playoff percentage isn't that high, but they're only one game out, and there's a lot of good young talent on this team that you might have to say, okay, you know what? We're not waiting until next year. This is our year. We're buying. And you could look to get a younger pitcher, a younger hitter, just someone like that. You could look to get a veteran kind of leader on this team. But there's a lot of good young pieces on this team that I think the Nationals could potentially talk themselves into buying. You, of course, have Josiah Gray, who is a really good young pitcher, Mackenzie Gore as well, Mitchell Parker, Jake Irvin as guys who have stepped up in this rotation. Of course, you have a lot of good younger position players, as in C.J. Abrams, James Wood, Robert Hassel, Dylan Cruz, who are all going to come up within this year and next, I'd say. And again, there's a lot of young talent on this Nationals team that is exciting to see, exciting to watch, and I'm very excited to end up seeing as they do develop for the course of their careers and over the course of this year and next year. And you look at the Central East this year, again, it might not be the Braves' year. The Mets are looking like a disaster right now. The Marlins are horrible. And if you're the Nationals, do you take advantage of that? Do you say, okay, you know what? If we add someone at the deadline, whether it's a big piece or a smaller piece, we call up some of our prospects, we could finish second in this division, we could make the wild card. I think second may be a little out of reach, but I still think they have a good chance to make the wild card at this point. And I thought at the start of the year, if they put everything together, they would potentially be a good team, and they have simply just done that. I think there's a lot of great pieces on this team that are to like, and yeah, if I'm a Nationals fan, I'd be very, very excited, and I think that overall there's a lot to love on this team. So be very interesting to see if they buy or sell. Personally, I would do a hybrid. I would sell off guys on one-year deals like a Trevor Williams who has value, but also look to add people with control of areas that you need, like bullpen arms, like some starting pitching arms, maybe some overall depth in that lineup as well. Players that are veterans that have, a few years left on that contract, they are available if you do have the prospect capital to trade for them. So I'm very interested to watch this Nationals team, what decisions they do make, and yeah, just very excited to watch this young team progress over the future as a baseball fan. So that is it for our show today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and notification bell to not only get notified when I upload, but when all the other great content creators on this channel do. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. It's a beautiful day outside. Enjoy it. Listen to this podcast on Spotify, whatever services you listen to podcasts. If you want to, just listen to it in the background or something like that. We upload all 4 clips to YouTube as well, so if you want to check out that, go ahead. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. It's a beautiful day outside. Enjoy it. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see what baseball throws at us tomorrow. Thanks, guys, and bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't